Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Propcast. My name is Louisa Dickens, host of the Propcast and co-founder of Elamori, the global PropTech recruitment and search consultancy. In this podcast, we'll explore how the digital evolution of the real estate industry is impacting the property market. The aim of each episode is to introduce you to a PropTech innovator and discuss how their work has created a shift in focus when it comes down to digitizing the built environment. If you're interested in finding out more about PropTech or applying for a job in this space, or keen to know who the big players are that are moving and shaking the real estate industry up, we have you covered, and we will be bringing you an episode each week to connect to the VCs, PropTech startups, and real estate professionals from around the globe. Also, a big shout out to our sponsors of the podcast, ReamTech and Pretech, who you will hear from during the episode. On today's podcast, we'll be speaking with PropTech Australia's founder, Kylie Davis, and Kylie's fellow board member and CEO of Australia's leading valuation software company, Scott Willson. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hi, Louise. Great to be here.
Hi, Louise. Good to be on the show.
And now Kylie and Scott will be chatting through the trends in PropTech, adoption obstacles down under, what the mission of PropTech Australia Association is. And we'll also be learning a lot more about Forbury's valuation software company, which is launched over here in the UK. I think it was this year, Scott?
That's right.
Congratulations on that. But first, obviously, quick introductions. Kylie is recognized internationally as a thought leader on content marketing, property industries, and of course, PropTech, which she, as I mentioned earlier, is the founder of PropTech Australia Association, which is a national member association that is a champion of the real estate technology industry and a leader driving the PropTech conversation. On top of all of this, Kylie founded Real Content as she saw a need for quality articles and information about the property industry for use by real estate agents and mortgage brokers. Kylie has had a very, very successful 25-year career working as a senior editor at the Sydney Morning Herald and Sun Herald and News Corp, where she was the network editor of real estate, managing a team of 50 journalists, which sounds crazy and I'm sure extremely hard work for more than 100 newspapers and websites nationally. And this media experience has been backed by 4.5 years of working as head of real estate and content marketing at CoreLogic, which is Australia's largest provider of property and data analytics. Kylie also impressively has an MBA from the University of, is it New South Wales?
New South Wales, yeah.
And is the author of 7 landmark reports on customer experience and technology in real estate. And last but not least, I don't know how you manage all of this, Kylie, but she has also been a founder herself, a co-founder of a PropTech startup, Home Prezzo, on the board of PIPA, which is Property Investment Professionals Australia, and finally an advisor to Cribs AI and the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. Wow. And Scott, it's time for your introduction as well. So Scott is the CEO of Forbury, which is Australia's leading valuation software company. He's grown the business from the ground up and is thrilled to operate on a global scale from his hometown in New Zealand, which is where we are speaking to him from. Now, with an honours commerce degree specialising in operations research, Scott began his career building strategic models for the public sector in New Zealand. Across a broad range of industries, he developed investment frameworks, profitability, forecasting models, and a reputation for being highly analytical. During his time in the UK, Scott developed his senior management skills and built change management experience into his repertoire. At Forbury, he has developed analysts, software developers, product sales, and marketing managers into a very high-performing team, which has obviously led to his global expansion, which we're going to hear a lot more about later. And obviously, Scott and Kylie are friends for probably, I'm sure, some time, and he's also supports Kylie as a board member of PropTech Australia. So now I've given both our special guests introductions, hopefully accurate introductions as well. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, from both of you, and Kylie, you can lead us in, how you got into this space. I'm sure lots of people know the business CoreLogic, but specifically how you got into being a founder, journalist, everything.
Oh, okay. Oh, gosh, I won't go back that far. So my background's in marketing and media. And when I was at News Corp, one of the really fun things I did was I taught my team of 50 journalists at News in the real estate team how to use data to cover this thing called the property market. Yeah, data or data depends who we're talking. Yeah, so we embarked on this program to teach them how to use data to report about the market, because this old idea that, house for sale wasn't really very exciting news. That's kind of no shit, Sherlock. That's what we do in real estate. So we wanted to make it more interesting. And as part of that, we rolled out CoreLogic's data across all of the newsrooms across the country. And after a couple of years of 5 years of doing that, the CEO of CoreLogic reached out to me and said, look, we've got lots of data and we know it tells a whole lot of stories, but we don't know how to do that. Do you want to join us and take that on as the next challenge? So, media, big data, where were the career opportunities? I went, jumped the ship and went to big data. And
sensible move.
it was all upside. And while I was at CoreLogic, looking after the real estate solutions, we could see that the industry was under enormous pressure to change and to disrupt.
Yeah.
And we could see that, and certainly, we had a very inspirational CEO at CoreLogic in the form of Graham Mirabito, who was a million ideas a minute and a very good sort of technology spotter and investor, and still is. Like, he's now kind of investing in an awful lot of tech on the side. So he was constantly introducing these businesses. I could see that there was all this sort of new technology coming through, and that we were moving from, fixed computing to cloud computing, and that all this innovation was happening. And so I wrote one of the first reports on it, which was the future of real estate in Australia. And we looked at all the top trends that were affecting the industry and how they were changing the job that real estate agents, or the way that real estate agents were working. And that's how I got into PropTech. And during that, I met a young guy called Nathan Krasansky, who had this really cool piece of tech called HomePresso. HomePresso turned data into videos, and then we worked out how to turn it into articles, which got me really excited as a former journo. And when I left CoreLogic, Nate said, come and join us. And so that's how I got into my sort of second PropTech. So we joined Real Content HomePresso together, and we sold that to ActivePipe back in June last year.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that. Not many people, I'm sure, did too much last year, especially like sort of merging companies. There were a couple of big ones, but smaller businesses, that's brilliant. Here is a message from our sponsor, Michael Beckerman from PropTech.
Hey, this is Michael Beckerman from PropTech. I'm here to invite you to check out PropTech Plus, the first streaming platform devoted to innovation and technology in the built world, featuring new weekly videos from the world's leading real estate and tech professionals. The first month of streaming is absolutely free, and then you could use the code LMRE to receive 25% off your second month. To learn more, visit plus.cretech.com.
We'll obviously go into the sort of trends, what you've seen when you first published that report, and what you guys are now seeing in Australasia in terms of sort of PropTech. But before we do that, Scott, tell us a little bit more about how you came to founding Forbury as well, which obviously, as we mentioned, has launched in the UK June this year.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. So Forbury was actually started by another gentleman by the name of Steve Surridge, who I've had the pleasure of working with in previous roles to Forbury, and another director who had advised him at the start as well, Peter Rose. They're both now in the business, one heading up our growth efforts in the UK, and the other is the chairman of the business. But the story of Forbury really goes back a long time to 2002, when Steve was consulting in the industry in Sydney. He landed a gig with Savills in Australia to help them build out a valuation solution that they could take across the country, that they could give to valuers to use operationally in their day-to-day jobs right across the country, and in the process get a lot more consistency in how they were running valuations, which is quite a risk-based exercise. So he conducted that consulting engagement, and not long after it finished, he moved with his family back to New Zealand, hence the New Zealand connection. And what happened is a lot of Savills competitors, one by one, started reaching out to Steve and asking if he could build a similar model for them. And kind of as a side hustle that lasted for quite a long time, he went and built these other models for Jones Lang LaSalle, for Colliers, and I think he helped Knight Frank with their model as well.
Nice.
And around about 2013, when we were kind of getting Forbury together, I guess was kind of the genesis of taking that to a product-based initiative. And so we had a number of other groups that were a bit smaller, didn't have the same sort of consulting budget as some of those big property agencies did, but the same sort of requirements. The jobs they were looking to do with the solutions were fundamentally the same. So they were reaching out to Steve. Steve was desperately trying to get more of his life back in the evenings. And so the idea of productizing the solution came about through Pete's suggestion. And at that point in time, I was in between roles. And based on our previous work experience together, Steve asked if I wanted to lead it up and really start the ball rolling on what could be an enterprise that needed kind of someone to concentrate on it for 6 months. So that's how I got involved. And we went from there.
For those listening, I heard about Forbury's product from actually a friend of mine who worked for Argus, or I think it's Altus, I can't remember who acquired who, as software, and she was going in for a pitch with it was a big old company, and she lost it to Forbury, and that's how I first heard about Forbury. And I was like, oh, who is it? And then I think I harassed or messaged Scott on sort of LinkedIn and like, I heard about your business. It's obviously doing something pretty game changing, but that's basically how it came about. My friend has since moved back to the UK and has joined another PropTech business, but yeah, that's how the introduction came between Scott and I. Okay, now let's talk a bit more about the trends you guys have seen in the, I guess, sort of your side of the world in terms of the PropTech. And it'd be great to get your opinions because, Scott, obviously you're very much in the crease of the valuation space that's heavily growing. Maybe you can talk about what sort of changes you've seen in sort of adoption and specifically to do with your vertical, but I'm sure you've got opinions on others.
Yeah, sure. Look, so I mean, just to sort of fast forward to where we are today, we provide solutions regionally primarily, and those regions that we cover are kind of Australia. We have customers in Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, and New Zealand, and more recently we've launched in the UK as well, which is a focus for us at the moment. We serve kind of two key segments within it. They're both kind of in that investment management space. So it's valuations that are performed usually by a third party, so one of those property agency firms, or it's a owner of commercial real estate, and they've tended to use our software for understanding the transaction value of buying or selling a commercial piece of real estate. So whether that's a large shopping centre, an office building, an industrial or logistics park, they're the sort of institutional grade assets that we see. From a trends perspective, I think it's been really interesting watching this space evolve over the last 8 years. What we've seen a lot of in this part of the world around investment management software has been kind of two things. First, a lot of software that was built for other markets and often a long time ago. So, Northern Hemisphere based solutions that have been picked up by groups in Australia more broadly and to varying degrees of success implemented in the market as well. Because they haven't always been quite fit for purpose and often very old technology as well. A lot of the market has resorted to using spreadsheets for what would typically be using as an enterprise solution for a software solution like Forbury. So it's been a really interesting time to work in the market because on one hand, you've got kind of all the disincentives to adopting new technologies in place in this segment combined with older solutions and older work practices. So I think what's really happened more recently in the last 18 months is a real awareness of there are better ways to do things. And actually, it's not risky to do it. It's actually risky not to do it.
Have you found, in terms of getting your product into, you mentioned some pretty big names earlier. Have you found that there's some classic well-known names who are a lot more open to trying the technology? These guys will do it, but still thousands of other businesses just waiting for them to actually have the product. And it's like all these PropTech businesses are all pitched into the same ones. We just need to get a few more into sort of piloting.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're pitching and also where you've come from. I touched on it before. It's an area where change is hard to adopt inside many big owner groups. And that's largely because the risks of getting it wrong are magnified. If you get an estimate on an investment proposition wrong by, what could be a few basis points, that translates into a compounded and capitalized impact for you if you're buying an asset or if you're selling it. So as a result, there's almost these incentives at play that prevent risk taking. You add to that the fact that a lot of the property industry tend to work on a relationship basis. So they'll often, because of this risk-based way of working, they'll try and really lean on connections, people they've worked with in the past, trusted advisors, for example, to help them and coach them through technological change. So if you're coming at the industry from the outside without that, it is a bit of an uphill challenge to kind of get a bit of a sense of how to actually work within it. I think some of these bigger groups that do have a lot of processes around adopting and using new technology can sometimes make it quite hard for themselves, but I've honestly seen a mix of approaches right across the spectrum. Really big groups that can be quite entrepreneurial in the way that they think about onboarding change, right through to banks that will prevent this type of thing quite explicitly in their procurement processes.
Yeah, we've seen a rise of roles in the larger real estate businesses in the innovation, the data technical solution engineers side. I think they've risen by sort of 100% this year. So they're all finally getting budgets to, help them integrate, help them try, but then obviously someone's saying, why fix something that ain't broke, which must be very frustrating for you guys. But Kylie, you mentioned earlier that you were one of the first people to write a report on trends in PropTech, and you've obviously read and analysed a lot of sort of data within real estate. Compare when you first got into the space, what trends did you sort of see then, and what have you seen now in terms of PropTech?
Look, I think that the trends that we're seeing are still sort of playing out. So big data's been around for a while, but I think we're starting to make sense of it. And the rolling out and the acceleration of AI and voice and how it's starting to really change what we do and how we do it and what it makes possible. What I find really interesting, because Scott's coming from the commercial side and my background is more in the residential side of real estate, is that they're two really connected but different markets. In the residential real estate market, you deal the PropTechs that I know really well are dealing with a very disparate market of lots of little, smaller businesses that are, like small, medium enterprise, SMEs compared to the big end of town. So the opportunity in the residential space and the challenge in the residential space for PropTechs is to win enough customers that can keep you going at a price point that will support your business compared to the issues that the PropTechs that are working in the commercial space have, which is they need a really long runway because it takes a long time to close those deals while they work their way through the politics of different organizations and building those relationships. So we see the same kind of trends around data, around mobile and technology that is transportable across different devices. We see the same trends play around using things that were previously, just reports or, flat data in becoming actually live data sets. We see all those sort of trends happening. We see that happening across residential and the commercial end of town. It's just the speed of adoption based on the politics and the leadership of the organizations, and the number of organizations is very different.
Yeah. As in the residential market in Australia, isn't it all run by auctions? It's pretty hot.
So we do have a really big auction markets. They're about 30% of transactions nationally. They are a fantastic barometer of how our residential market is performing, and they keep us, it's like our favourite spectator sport. It's the only spectator sport that unites the whole nation. Every single weekend, it's literally reported like sports results. So every Australian has an idea as to whether the market is up, whether it's down, whether it's really hot, whether it's cooling off, based on auction clearances and whether things are selling over and above, estimated prices.
So every neighbour's comparing, what the house is going for on their street.
Oh, God, yeah.
So brutal.
Go through property porn.
I founded LMRE back in 2019 with co-founders Brad Bartlett and Richard Lloyd, because we knew there was a better way to recruit, a more comprehensive, client-led focus, delivering exceptional talent on demand to the movers and shakers of the PropTech world. LMRE was founded with the foresight of being innovative and on the front foot of reimagining real estate landscape. Today, we expertly match the leading PropTech minds of innovative organizations who are shaping the future of the built environment. If you're hiring now or looking to be hired, why not check it out at lmre.tech. And one of our specialist consultants will be in touch to listen to your needs and come up with a tailored solution for your business or your own personal job search. Now, 90% of recruiters who post through LMRE get quality candidates through the site in just one day. So why not try it out at www.lmre.tech. You like talking about auctions. We love talking about the weather. Okay, now let's go on to, obviously, you're both involved in the PropTech Australia Association. Kylie, talk us through a little bit about that, the setup of it, the mission, and Scott, what's, I guess your role in it as well.
Yeah, so we set up the PropTech Association back in February last year because we felt that there was so much PropTech that was starting to come onto the market that we needed an industry association that would help us understand who was who in the zoo. So while the real estate agents at a residential level have, the real estate REIs, while the property owners have like the Property Council of Australia, they're representing their interests in the market. We've gone from a position where there was about 100 up to about 650 PropTechs in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, and that number is growing exponentially every week. I find another couple that we that are applying to join the association, so we know it's growing really quickly. What we all need to do, though, is as individual PropTechs, one of the challenges that we all face is that if we are as individual PropTechs trying to convince potential clients as to the value of innovating generally and the value of the vibe of our technology and what it does, rather than talking about specific product specifics, then that is actually a sort of a way that the industry, or that the broader property and real estate industry, can divide and conquer PropTech by making us all individually responsible for convincing people that innovation is a good thing. So what we want to do as an association is to have a bigger conversation about the value of innovation, what good adoption looks like, how to minimize your risk, what are the big trends coming through that you should be paying attention to if you're a property owner or a real estate agent. And we want to basically do the air cover so that our technology businesses, or the technology businesses that we're associated with, find it easier to go out and sell their products and to get really, sticky and to grow faster and scale faster.
Do you have international PropTechs? Because, we're seeing lots of, US businesses coming to UK, or like Forbury coming to the UK. I'm obviously a board director of the United Kingdom PropTech Association. So we're encouraging so we can help get more PropTechs to launch. Scott, is that sort of what's your sort of involvement within PropTech Australia? How does Forbury benefit from it?
Sure. So toward the end of last year, we sort of looked around and thought that there needs to be more representation of these great success stories that have really popped out of Australia, and particularly around PropTech. Yeah. And that's when we found Kylie and PropTech Association of Australia. We'd met Kylie through other channels and forums in the past. And what really attracted me to getting involved, I guess, was the fact that our organisation is not for profit. It's really trying to provide that ear cover that Kylie described before. And I felt that by being involved personally in the endeavours, I could help lend kind of a little bit of help around the commercial side, and also help tell those stories about those PropTechs that are emerging out of Australia and are doing amazing things. We've got companies that are very similar. I think there's big international companies looking to get more exposure in Australia, right through to startups that are looking for representation and help and resources on understanding how they can learn from groups that have been there, done that. So what really attracted me was kind of what I see as a win-win. I felt like I have something to offer around my experience in commercial real estate, technology development in Australia. And also I think that PropTech Australia, can obviously help us, and been a big supporter of that within Forbury. We can obviously provide an element of support to that cause as well. So it's been a really great relationship, and, as evidenced by the expanding membership base as well, that Kylie's been able to develop. It's been a real success story. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you, Kylie. I'd love to know a bit more, Scott, about, obviously, we've mentioned it a couple of times, you've obviously launched in the UK, and you've grown across Australasia. You mentioned a lot of the APAC markets. How does it compare to launching over in the UK? Is it a hell of a lot further away? Is it challenging due to different, obviously, market product or market need? How did you go about it?
Well, it didn't quite find us. We were quite proactive in selecting the UK as our next market. What we found during the lockdowns quite early on in the piece last year was that we had a lot of inbound inquiry out of the UK. And so pretty common it was for me to jump on calls around about this time and speak to people that we were sort of meeting through our network, who were just looking to find out more about what we had, what we did. And through just discovery calls, we were learning a lot that our approach was quite relevant, that there was a lot of interest in it, but the products we had were quite specific to how groups in APAC really consider an investment proposition in commercial real estate. So we hired a consultant, Katie Medlock, I think you've met before, Lou. And Katie undertook a market study for us to really determine the feasibility of a Forbury entry into the UK. So around about September last year, on some really encouraging signs, we appointed Katie, our head of UK, and really have targeted since then an opportunity that we believe exists around the transactions space in the United Kingdom. What's quite clear is that, very similar to Australia, there's a lot of people using spreadsheets for what is a really important process. And, through using different spreadsheets from different authors, you get all the risk associated with that. So rather than sort of fronting with our Australian products and saying, here's how we do things at Forbury, we've taken a step back and said, actually, that's not how things are done in the UK. We can't be that naive. So we've really taken our time to craft an offering that's quite relevant and specific to how transactions analysis is conducted in the UK. Hired a few consultants. We went through a product localization and engineering phase at the beginning of this calendar year. And since March, have been working with 2 pilot customers on really validating and proving that solution. So we're at a point now we've got a huge amount of confidence based on that feedback and based on some early signs that are quite encouraging as well. So we're really launching at this point. And around the time zones and the personnel, we've now got a team of 3. So in addition to Katie Medlock, we also have a customer success person, and recently have appointed a sales manager who's UK based as well. So we have a team of 3 that's really supporting our expansion efforts in that time zone. And then we've got our big engineering and marketing resource back here in New Zealand that's really helping to augment that market effort outside of the time zone.
Oh, congratulations on that growth. And I have met Katie and she is fabulous. She's extremely impressive. And I think so often we hear of international PropTechs coming into the UK market. We've obviously had the same thing for the US and same thing for APAC, people not conducting the full market research and going in too hot, too soon. And, first impressions count. And when you're piloting someone, you've got to get it right the first time because they'll go to someone the next time. And we've had a bunch of the Ream Tech CTOs on here, from PGIM, LaSalle Investment Management, have all said, literally, I know people want us to trial their PropTech, but they never understand, what is the actual value proposition here? What is the problem they're trying to solve? Does it sort of fit our business? And that's one of their, then they waste their time when they're sort of interviewing or, piloting as well. So it's a two-way street, but it sounds like you guys have done all of that. So fingers crossed for the next coming years as well. Who knows? Maybe the US is next for you, even further away. But we're coming to the end of the Propcast, but we finished.
It's actually closer.
Is it closer? God, I'm so blonde.
It's closer for us. Yeah. It's only 17 hours up the road.
Just 17 hours.
Hi, this is Nelson from PropTech Once. I'd like to invite you to join our Introduction to Data Science and Machine Learning for Real Estate seminar. To learn more, visit proptechquants.com/seminar and use special code LMRE20 on Eventbrite for a discount.
But we're coming to the end of the podcast, but we're finishing with the LMRE part. So Kylie, you can start us and I'll walk you through it. So the L is, touch on what's the main lesson you've learned in your career. Mention to anyone a product or service. R, what's the most rewarding part of sort of working in PropTech, or maybe, obviously working within the PropTech Association. And E, what are you most excited about?
What's the most exciting lesson I've learned?
Well, the toughest lesson. Should have gone into data a bit earlier.
Yeah. Maybe I should have. Ask Scott while I think about it.
Yeah, Scott, is there any sort of lesson in which you've learned throughout your career?
Yeah, I think specifically in this role, it's been humble. You kind of, and the last 12 months especially have taught me this, it's very easy when you're promoting a product or a service to, drink the Kool-Aid and believe you're really onto something and that, you've solved everyone's problems. And I think what I've really learned and what I think is really important, especially for startups in this space, is, don't underestimate how hard it is to get the true product market fit and really understand what job you're trying to solve, and keep going with it, because even when you think you've solved it, you just find out more about it and you really can use that to open up a bigger, deeper segment. So it's it's that humility and really asking questions and only really fronting with what you can back as well.
Not being afraid of the answer, because so many founders, me included, you get so close. Obviously, I don't have a product. I guess my team is my product. You get so close to it. It's so personal, and you get it should be constructive feedback. You're like, Scott, let's just stay on with this. So is there any person or product you'd like to give a shout out to? You obviously gave a shout out to Katie and for your team earlier. Maybe there's a couple of PropTechs sort of on your side of the world you'd like to, completely down to you.
Probably one is we do a lot of work in New Zealand with a company called Released. They provide a property management challenger solution. There's a lot of big established groups out there that have been providing property management solutions for a long time. But what we really like about working with Released is that it's built from the cloud first, and that they are very, very deliberate about what opportunities they pursue. They've also helped us immensely with introductions into the UK market, and Richard Kennedy in particular has been really helpful.
Yeah, I was about to say, know a few of the team there, and Richard's fantastic. Okay, what's the most rewarding aspect of working in this space other than being an amazing founder?
I think it's the untapped potential of it. If you look at what's happening in VC markets globally at the moment, it's just going crazy. And I read an article a few weeks ago that $1 in $5 that a VC is putting into it is going into fintech at the moment. And while that's a really deep, huge bank sector where disruption is just ripe for disruption, I think real estate, in particular commercial real estate, is pretty similar. You're dealing with the world's largest physical asset class, $31 trillion US, and it largely hasn't been disrupted by technology for the most part. And in the investment management space, it's very similar to fintech from a perspective of investment. So the thing that excites me the most is just the huge amount of opportunity in this space. It is unbelievable. The more I read, the more I learn about it, the more excited I get.
Yeah. Well, look, you sort of covered the rewarding and exciting part there, but now it's time for Kylie.
I've got my act together now.
I love it. Okay, we'll go through the LMRE part of you. I'll walk you through it. So, okay, biggest lessons learned in your career.
So the biggest lesson I've learned in my career is that there will come a time when the effort that goes into avoiding the change or avoiding learning the thing that you don't want to learn, that the effort that goes into avoiding it becomes actually greater than actually just getting stuck into it and learning it and embracing it. And I think that's a great metaphor for everybody's fear around PropTech, because we spend so much time trying to hang on to the old ways of doing things, but actually in the meantime, it just gets easier, and the effort that we have to put into doing it the old way actually becomes harder than just learning the new tech to make our lives easier and streamlined and a lot more. That's been one of my biggest lessons, that just suck it up, princess, and do it.
God, yeah. Hopefully people listening will take that on board as well, especially the real estate community. Okay, now I'm sure there's probably actually a few products you might want to give a shout out to. Maybe some success stories from your PropTech Australia Association. Down to you.
Yeah, look, a couple that I would like to give a shout out to in the residential and commercial space, one that's operating in the UK. Box Brownie is one of our most successful residential real estate techs. They're photo editors that specialise in property photo editing. They can renovate living rooms just from a couple of photos taken on your phone. They can turn the rain off and turn the sunshine on. They can put sunsets behind it. They're an amazing company that have done extraordinarily well globally across Southeast Asia, the US and the UK. I'd also like to give a shout out to ActivePipe, because they are one of Australia's most successful PropTechs as well, and rapidly scaling. And another one that's coming to the UK soon, I know, in the commercial space, is AI Assets, and they have some great technology that helps property surveyors and property owners capture the data of their buildings and make it a lot easier to run asset registers and do life cycle management.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And what's the most rewarding aspect of working in this space? Maybe it's getting more rewarding now. It's, finally growing and sort of taking off.
Yeah, no, look, I think it's always been really rewarding. I think there's something really exciting having an idea and watching it turn into a company. And I think from the PropTech Association, watching founders and watching someone who's got an idea turn it into a viable business, and then watching them grow as humans and as leaders in that space. Because if you want to do anything to challenge yourself, set up your own business or set up your own tech company and try and sort of fund it and grow it and win your first set of clients and then scale it, that's a great way to really set yourself some personal challenges.
Yeah, it's definitely no easy feat. I sort of feel like I've aged a lot in the last 2 to 3 years from that, but it's really rewarding. Okay, last but not least, what are you most excited about the future of PropTech, Kylie?
Look, I'm just really excited about the association and the work that we're doing to grow the sector. There's so much potential if only there was no limit to the time or the resources that we had to do, people, time and money that we had to do it. But I'm excited about how quickly Australian PropTech's growing. I'm excited about how our market is really of interest to overseas PropTechs. And I just want to see the sector do really well, because we work in a space that is not just an investment. Like, I get quite cranky at the commercial side of town, because it's not just about investment and dollars. When we're talking about residential real estate as well, we're talking about the most important asset people have. And it's important not just from the money side, but because it's people's homes and it's where their hearts and their families are. So I think we're working in an extraordinarily exciting space, and I'm really looking forward to and excited about Australian PropTech's potential to transform how we live and work and interact with the built environment around the world.
Yeah, I think also those who are looking to expand to Australia, definitely tap up Kylie's of the association. If you're looking for new valuation software, slightly different from the larger businesses, and you're an investment manager listening in, definitely speak to Scott. They're not across APAC, they're obviously in the UK, like we spoke about. Who knows where else I'll be in a year. So thank you both for joining me on the Propcast. I'm looking forward to catching up with you after the show.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks for having us, Lou.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Propcast, and a big thanks to our guests and our sponsors, PropTech and ReamTech. Make sure you visit our website, lmre.tech, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, keep up with our industry news and events, or if you're looking for your next career move, it's all on there. The Propcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify and YouTube, where all good content is found. Whilst we're at it, If you found value in the show, we'd appreciate it if you could spread the word and tell a friend about it, or even write us a review. And I'll catch you next week.